Thank you to Bug Zero for sponsoring this episode. This isn't some giant company with a call center that you'll never reach. Bug Zero is local and their team shows up with care. That matters to us, and it shows in the work that they do through InsectiShield. Visit bugzero.com or call text 417-831-7378. That's call or text 417-831-7378. Thank you, Bug Zero.
Just a quick disclosure to share in conjunction with this podcast. Each of us are speaking to our personal experiences and do not consider ourselves experts and cannot offer medical, therapy, financial, or legal advice. We represent a wide range of experience on the autism spectrum and will always honor each perspective that is brought to our discussions. Our experiences, opinions, and perspectives are all unique and different and will be celebrated. Thank you so much for listening and connecting with us. Thank you. Welcome to Navigating Adult Autism. We are just a bunch of moms with a lot of perspectives, a lot of experience, and a lot of opinions. My name is Mary, and I'm here with Dawn and Elizabeth. Eli Winfrey is here, and he was on a previous podcast. Fortunate to still have him as our guest host. We're going to talk to Eli a little bit about self-care in men and dads. We might talk about our husbands a little bit or what it takes. And we're going to also ask Eli about his good, better, how. And I wrote that down when I was listening to Eli's podcast, and it was worth writing down. So we're going to get into, how do we take care of ourselves? How do dads take care of themselves or should be taking care of themselves, and what motivates Eli? Because I do follow him on Facebook, and you all should too, and on Instagram and X, which used to be Twitter, because he's pretty motivational. And I do thank you for your motivational little, I don't want to say speeches, but comments or motivation of the day. They're Mondays and Fridays.
Yeah, Mondays and Fridays. Thank you.
But I think self-care is important. We kind of touched on it when we were together about taking a break from social media sometimes and rechecking ourselves, and how do we, if we're too overwhelmed, or sometimes I think overwhelm's a little overused. How do we get back to us, I guess? Or what are you seeing, or how do you gauge that? Or
that's a great question. I think about this one a lot because I struggle with this a lot. Self-care, a lot. There have been times, and I've gotten better with treating myself much more kindly, but there can be times where I can burn the candle at both ends, and I think I can fit something in when I know I shouldn't, or my body's telling me you need to relax, and I don't relax. I try to fit it in, and I pay the price later. And this happened last month, late May. I knew that June was going to be an extremely busy month for me with my book signings and my trip here to Springfield, and some other things that are happening at the end of this month. I knew it was a lot. And so I was trying to put things in place in late May to be able to balance that. And I kept getting signs from my body saying, you need to slow down just a little bit, but I would ignore it. And in the past, maybe the last couple of years, I've been better at noticing signs and pivoting and shutting down and taking a break from a lot of things, social media included. But this time I just figured I can push through this time. I hadn't done it in a while. And when I did that, I was pretty much on bed rest for 2 days, having to recharge. I had to unplug from everything, social media, which is a big deal for me because a lot of my work, it intertwines with social media. But you have to be able to take a break from that from time to time. So I learned a hard lesson. And, I try to, when I do take these breaks, I try to focus on me, taking walks, maybe going to hit some golf balls, maybe not playing per se, but it clears my mind of things that I have coming up. It's like a release for me. And when that doesn't happen, I really struggle. I end up either catching a cold or having some chest pain issues that have bothered me from time to time because I tend to overdo it. And I think we all want to do a lot of things in a really positive way. that we pretend or we forget to think about ourselves, right? We pretend that we don't see these signs. So I have done a better job outside of last May of really noticing the symptoms and saying to myself, okay, we need to take a step back. It's time to pull back from everything, not just one thing. You need to pull back from everything. If you need to take time off from the school, you need to do that to be right, because you can't pour into an empty cup. And I say that a lot to people. And what do I go out and do? I go out and pour into an empty cup, you know? And again, it goes back to like having these conversations with yourself. You know, if you really want to have an impact in the world and in the community, you got to listen to your body. You got to listen to the signs that tell you, hold up, we're not ready to speak today, maybe tomorrow, or maybe in 3 days. And you got to be honest. And those around you that really care about you, they'll understand that. And those who don't, those are the people that you will ultimately shed in the long run, because they're not meant to be on that journey with you. So I just learned to read my body really well. And I know, because my body will tell me, my back will get tight, or, you know, again, you know, my chest will start hurting a little bit, or I'll get headaches. And I'll tell myself, I've worked out today. I've drank water. What's going on? And then I realize, oh, wait a minute. I've been going a mile a minute, and I don't sleep well, you know, on top of that. You know, I maybe sleep on average 3 hours a night.
Oh,
That's not healthy, folks.
right.
It's not. I know my wife worries about it all the time, and we've done these sleep interventions. We've gone to these places. I've been hooked up to different material and tubes, and I think it's just it's a military thing that I unfortunately have to deal with, where I'm always alert and up, you know. But I've been able to kind of really pace myself now, which has helped. But you have to take care of yourself. It is I think it's the number one thing, right? If you're going to be productive in whatever you're doing, whether it's being a husband or wife or friend, an advocate, you got to take care of yourself, and you have to listen to your body. Listen to the signs. They're there for a reason.
Right. Right.
Well, I know with me, the body part that I struggle with when I get overloaded is my brain, because I start missing appointments. That over the years, I've started to realize that that's when I've just been too busy, overdone it. My body's starting to shut down because I don't miss appointments. I might be late, but I never miss anything, you know, or I'll call. But when I just completely start missing things, that's mine. So I think, yeah, a lot of people have different signs. So
They do. But it's clear signs, right?
yeah, once I figured it out.
Right. It's like
Right.
right there. And that's happened to me too, where I'm driving or I'm leaving and I'm like, wait a minute, I was supposed to be at this place 30 minutes ago. Uh-oh. Or a couple of days ago. Was it 2 days ago? I got back to the hotel and I told Elizabeth, okay, I'm going to be ready. And what happened? I fell asleep.
Oh,
Right,
you probably needed it.
because when I get off the plane, like I didn't really sleep on the plane. So I'm going off of just energy, right? And adrenaline. And so we're doing all this stuff throughout the day, which was great, by the way. But when I got back to the hotel, we were going to do something else in the evening. And I said, okay, I'm going to go take a little break and I'll be ready to go. 5:30 comes and I roll over and I go, uh-oh. But the warning signs were there. Like, Eli, I know you're excited to be here, but slow down a little bit. Nobody's going anywhere. Like, take a break, really take a break, and then get back into the activities. And so I had to learn that lesson. And I text Elizabeth and was like, oh, I'm coming right down. I'm so sorry. I dozed off, and, you know. But that's your way of your body saying, okay, we'll just shut down for you. When you lay down, you're going to take a nap. And that's what happened.
Right. So listening to your body.
Yes.
So what is your good, better, how?
So Good, Better, How started in golf. And, you know, I worked at the First Tee of Seattle, and it's an amazing program, by the way, for kids. They teach golf and core values and life skills for kids ages 5 through 17. And in class, one of the things we would always end the lessons on was a good, better, how. What was good about the day, right? How could it have been better? Now, what's the plan to make sure the next time it happens, right? So if you made a mistake, oh, we had a great time swinging a golf club. Okay, what could have been better about it? Well, my stance was a little off. I could have done this a little bit better. Okay, so next time, how do you make that happen? So I've incorporated that into my life. So when I'm struggling, I may say to myself, what was good about today? What was really good in an honest way? How could it have been better, right? What could I have done? What could I have said in that moment to make it better? And how do I do that next time at the next speaking event or the next signing or the next whatever I'm doing? So I try to incorporate that into my life, and it's been very beneficial because I use it all the time. And there's some times where I'm like, what was good about the day? Absolutely nothing. Nothing was good about the day. Now, how could it be better next time? Okay, next time I'll listen to my body, or I'll take the proper notes to be prepared. So how do I do that? Study, right? Pace myself, have a schedule lined up so I'm ready to go. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important. And a lot of my friends, I have friends in the community that I interact with, and we talk about this all the time. Like, what was good about yesterday, Eli? Or what was good about yesterday, Sean? What could have been better for you? If you're having issues with yourself, or maybe there's a family issue or a job issue, what could be better? How are you going to do it next time? So I've learned from that. And, these lessons through golf, and there are not a lot of them, but this one in particular is a very important one for me because it kind of sets my day and it ends my day. So I'm always prepared, even though I don't write anything down. I take notes at home or in the hotel, and I go over them over and over again, right? And I tell myself, all right, today's going to be a good day, and we're going to make it better by doing this, and this is how we're going to get to point A to point B. Mm-hmm. And then I go out and try to achieve it. And if it doesn't happen, I come back to that same good, better, how, and I try to break it down when I get back to the room or at home to see how I can be better the next time out.
I love that.
Yeah.
Like I said, when I heard it on your podcast and I wrote it down, I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to tell my son too, who's on the spectrum, Conrad, who's 33. And well, listen, I'm going to go tell my husband too. So, but
yeah, because
good, better, how, that I like. It's quick and easy, and it makes you think. I like it.
And then it celebrates what you did good,
right?
Recognizes it,
yep.
But also inspires you to do better. And then, yeah, how do we figure it out? How does it? Mm-hmm. It's not just something you write on the mirror that this inspirational thing. You're really it's mm-hmm. an equation. It's for the next day, but still recognizes it doesn't start with, okay, I was at fault today because I didn't do this, or I didn't check this off my list. It's right. What did I do?
And oftentimes, what do we lead with? What did I do wrong? Right? We start with that. What did I do wrong today? Or what did I do wrong? So we have to be sure to praise when we do good things, right? Sometimes we do have to be selfish in that department, because that's motivation. That's inspiring to say, I can do hard things. I did do this right. And then you get to the part where you say, okay, what could have been better? Right? What so you're not necessarily tearing yourself down. You're saying, what could I have done in that moment that could be better for next time? And then how do I set myself up for that success? So I really try to operate that way.
Do you use that at school at all as a para?
Yeah.
Do you ever influence the teachers that you work with that?
So that's it.
If not, you might want to start.
That's a great question. I use it at school a lot on myself because it's still new to me. Even though I've been at the school for 3 years, there are a lot of things that I see that is still very new, still very foreign. So I'm trying to figure it out. And so I try to use the good, better, how when I'm with a student, or I'm reading the lessons for the day in the classroom. So I'm trying to figure out for myself, how can I be better in that moment for that student so the student can prosper, right? Because a lot of times I know it's not about me, but if I'm going to elevate that student in the classroom, I have to be ready. And I have to be able to say, okay, we're going to have a good, better how today. We're going to start it this morning on the way to school. You know, what's good about going to school? Well, I get to see the paras and I get to see my students and I get to see the principal and everybody. Okay, what's going to be better today? Okay, yesterday was kind of a struggle. I didn't really explain something right to the student and the student struggle. So today I'm going to be better with my words and maybe break it down a little bit more. And how do I do that? With a calm voice, looking directly at the student and telling the student, this is what we have to do today. And I'm with you 100%. So it works. And I do see teachers do it because they'll ask to, like, they'll say, you know, I hear you talk about good, better, how. And so
all right.
We do introduce that to them from time to time.
Oh, good.
As you're saying, you know, yeah, take this home to Cloud and Red. I can see where it can also be very helpful for an individual on the spectrum, because no matter which, if they fixate on something, no matter which part of this they fixate on, it's not a negative.
Right.
It's okay, I'm going to fixate on what you said about how good I was, or I'm going to fixate on how I can do a little bit better.
Right.
I'm going to fixate on how it's actually done. So it's kind of a winning combination there. So
Absolutely. And that's what we want, right? We want a win-win. But in the win-win, you also want to highlight things that you could do better, right? You don't have to say that was negative, that was negative, that was negative. You could say, okay, now I have to be better in this area, and maybe this area. This is how I go about doing that.
So back to the Facebook and your motivational, what would you call those? Little motivational, what do we call them? Positive Fridays? What are they?
Yeah, so they're like inspirational messages. And so that started with Peloton. So I'm a Peloton junkie, by the way. I love working out. And, you know, I was
all love Peloton, don't we?
I was in their commercial in 2020. And part of that was because I was on their platform in the beginning before they really took off and before I really got addicted to, you know, their product. And I would just post every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, something positive, but genuine. I'm using that, right, to motivate myself. So I said, well, why not just share it? Maybe somebody will like it, right? You know? And so it started to take hold. And my wife would say, you know, you're in their, what do they call it? Algorithm or something
Algorithm.
like that? Algorithm. Just like, they're going to see that because you're getting like, it wasn't just like 50 likes. It was like 1,000 likes, and it would go to 2,000 likes. And she's like, they're going to reach out to you because you're moving, you're shifting, you know, those people, like you're getting more positive hits. You haven't got one negative hit. And so I'm like, oh, go on. I'm not going to do no fitness commercial, you know. But then they reached out and they said, we really like your inspiration and you seem genuine. Would you be willing to be in a commercial? And at first I'm like, I don't know. What does it pay? You know?
That's right.
So we talked about it and they said, well, what we would love for you to do is, could you create your own page with your inspirations? Because they're so good. Some of our managers are liking your stuff. And I'm like, sure. So I created my own little Facebook inspirational page. And then I said, why not just put it on my personal page too? And so I started to do it Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And one day I think I said, okay, I'm going to take Wednesday out, right? They don't need to see me Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right? Let's do Monday and Friday. Let's start the week and I'll say something very inspirational, something that I know I'm going to use that's genuine. And I'll just say, you know, I'm wishing you good luck and I'll see you at the finish line Friday.
Right.
Right.
That's right.
And so I would, every Friday I would check in to see how people were doing. Not so much on their fitness goals, right? Because everybody's dealing with things differently. Everybody has a different fitness goal. This was more about life and like, how are you progressing through life? I'm just sending you this message, hoping that it reaches one person. And it started to reach a lot of people. So we did the commercial and I just never stopped it because I feel like this is me.
Yeah.
Right.
It's good.
And so I took it to X. Then I've taken it to Instagram. And I think there are more people out there like that. And I just like sharing positive vibes. You know, I think a a lot of things in the world can be very negative. I think sometimes we lead too much with negativity, and we rarely talk about people doing good things. We always say, "Oh, that's he's a goody guy." And it's like, no, it's not about that. It's about inspiring and lifting somebody up. Somebody might be struggling. They read that and they could say, "It just made my day," right? And so that's what I try to do. And everything that I write that day in that moment, I'm either going through it, or I'm trying to live by it, right? So if I'm struggling, I may put something in about depression or, mentally struggling with something. If I'm having a friend issue, I may say something about friendship and how it's important to have, friends there for you, even in the darkest of times. Friends are always there when everything is great, but when you really need them, right? Where are they? So I kind of lead with stuff like that. And it's made an impact on me. It's made an impact on my wife, and friends around me. And even some teachers now. A lot of the teachers are like, we see it and we wait for it. We wait for you to, every 6 a.m. we know you're going to write something out, So it's been fun. I enjoy it, but that's where it started. Peloton kind of started that.
So with your work in the community with the low income families, not just with autism, right? But mainly with autism or some with autism. How has that affected? Do you use that positive with the dads, with the men, the parents? Like, how has that correlated with them? Like, do you find yourself doing the same with them?
Yes.
Motivating?
I do my very best to. And, it gets difficult when you really have to sit down with a lot of families and be really honest about what you see. And you really have to say it. And that their reaction a lot of times isn't going to be positive per se, right? But that they're leading with love. It never gets to a point where they call you out your name or they say something really derogatory. It's normally very disappointing, get out of my house, but they see that I never change, the way I am. I just get up and I go, but I'm very calm. And eventually they come back and we talk about it. But a lot of dads that I've interacted with, that's been where it's been sort of a struggle. Because a lot of dads that I've interacted with, they're very nervous, shameful. They don't really want to talk about it. There's a video that was taken by Ernie Els years ago. And his son is on the autism spectrum. And Ernie Els is a professional golfer. He plays on the PGA Tour. And he would talk about how he didn't want to go to dinners with family because he didn't want his son, out in public or be seen, having a meltdown or an escalation. And I encourage people to watch that video because it's very moving. But a lot of dads in the community that I've interacted with, we'll start the conversation, but we never really quite finish it because a lot of them, they don't want to get too deep into it. And a lot of them will say, it's because of things that I've done, Eli. Like there's some things I don't really want to share because I'm working on myself to be better. And we try to encourage a lot of dads to get together and let's just share stories because your story could be the same as this story. And it's hard. I have a niece and nephew on the spectrum. It's hard. And in the beginning, when I did see them, I saw how difficult it could be. And especially when you don't know or you're not trying to educate yourself, it is extremely difficult. And again, this is where communication comes into play. But I think a lot of dads really struggle with this. And there's some who do get it right. And when I started using golf as a platform and a purpose, I would always put on my golf bag somewhere, autism advocate for, at the time it was 1 in 50. Well, it was 1 in 88. Then it was 1 in 50. Now it's 1 in 31. And so I would put those slogans on my bag. Some dads would come up quietly on the tee or on the range and say, you got a moment? When did you start doing that? And how long have you done that? And I want to talk to you about, any other services that could help not just my son, but me, because I'm struggling. So you have those side conversations and sometimes they follow through and sometimes they don't. So I think a lot of it sometimes is a hit and miss. But I think the dads that do come forward and do want to talk, I think it's important because they can take those messages back to the community. Because sometimes what do we see the majority of the time? At least for me, I see women the majority of the time. Right. I very seldom see or work with dads. Not that they're not there, but I always talk to the mom. I'm always having these hard conversations with the mom, and the mom will share some things about their relationship that can be heartbreaking. Right. I won't get into too much of that, but I'll say I'm hoping that we at some point create a platform for dads to be able to feel comfortable enough to speak out, right? Whether they've made mistakes or not, about their kids on the spectrum and what they're doing to help themselves that will ultimately help their kids. Because I think that's a lot of that's missing at home. A lot of that's missing at home.
Well, and we were still planning on doing a dad's episode at some point, but let's see, we have 2 that said no, 1 that's a maybe, and I think the rest agreed, right? So, one of
Without naming names.
Without naming names. I think because it is so difficult, but it would be, or they want to stay private, or they don't want to share all that. And I respect that too, to a certain extent.
A lot of it,
it's a lot.
It's a lot, and a lot of it too. Unfortunately, a lot of it's ego driven too, right?
Okay.
It's I'm too proud to really talk about that. Nothing's really going on. It'll be corrected. It'll be fixed. I've had that said to me where some of the dads will say, "It's all right. It'll pass. When they grow up, it'll be fine. We'll heal." And I'm like, no, you got to communicate. We got to be able to talk about it. So I do understand that it's hard, but it's hard for everybody, not just one person. It's hard for everybody. And the kid, the child hears and sees that.
Right.
They do. They really do.
They do. They notice. They observe. Yes. And I think early on too, when we were all, I don't know if everyone had the same experience. Sorry, Dawn, were you going to say something? Sorry. Okay. I don't know who it was when my son was first diagnosed, and I was talking about just being diagnosed in general and the stages. And I think I wanted to tell my husband something, or we may have been talking about another parent, and they said, well, when you have a diagnosis, you go through the stages of death, acceptance, denial. Well, that's not in the right order, but that a lot of parents stay in those stages for a long period of time and they don't move forward. So if they're saying, oh no, it'll pass, it'll be fine, or they're just still enrolling them in regular school and they think everything's going to be okay. That's like, I just remember being at work and someone saying, oh, they're in the denial stage still, and I remember asking, actually, I think it was Carrie, who I used to work for. Shout out to Carrie. I said, what stage am I in? Was I in that denial stage long? She goes, no, you moved through that one pretty quick. I said, oh, okay. Well, I think because it's whatever type of person you are, I was ready to fix it, or what do I do next? What do I do? Let's move on. What do I do next? But I wonder if, I don't wonder. I think some dads are still kind of stuck in that maybe, or even ladies too, I guess. But
sure,
it's a journey. For sure.
It is.
But that's, one reason we have you here is because we can only give the female perspective.
Right.
And so much of self-care and supports are geared to the women. And, we have these expectations, that men are going to move through these stages and they're going to pitch in. But everything we hear, is a lot of it is geared towards women because we're up there front and center doing it. And so that's what we really, we only have our own perspective and we can, communicate with our husbands and try to understand and talk. But, for our listeners, we just, we need, maybe some of your insight here.
I think everything you just said is correct. I think it just comes down to the men. You have to have the courage to come forward, right? because you can't do this by yourself. You can't. So you have to have the courage to come forward and check your ego. There's nothing wrong with saying, I don't know. I don't understand. I need help, right? That's the thing. A lot of times we're afraid to say, I need help because I don't have the answer.
Right.
We're so used to saying, I got it. I got this. No problem. But when we don't, we tend to, move to the back of the line and we say, well, mom's got it. My wife's got it. She's got it. No, it's a team thing. There's nothing wrong. Because sometimes the mom will say, I don't know what to do either. I need help too. Where are the services for all of us?
Yeah. They've reached their breaking point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think it just comes down to a lot of the men being honest with themselves, because there are men that I have worked with that are doing it, that are coming forward and saying, Eli, I have no idea. What would you do in this situation? And I have to say, I don't have a kid on the spectrum. I have a niece and nephew back home. What I try to do is listen with the intent on understanding and then trying to get the help that we need, right? That's the only way this thing works. If I'm just going to stay silent and stay behind the scenes, nothing changes if nothing changes, right? And then ultimately what happens is the family's torn apart because there's a lack of communication, right? And again, the child knows what's going on. They feel it. They see it. They can see the separation, right? So I'm hoping that more men will come forward and talk about it, because every experience is different. Every experience is different. The spectrum is broad. So I think until that happens, you will see more women come forward and talk, right? I've seen my mom step forward and advocate and talk for my nephew and for my niece. And she would say, I wish you were here to kind of help, and I'm like, she'll say, like, you're helping from a distance. She said, but I really wish that there was another male in his life as well, right? And that's the hard part for me. When I hear that, I'm like, well, where's his dad?
Right.
In this process, like, he needs his dad. So I think we'll get there. I just think it has to be honest and open communication. And I think that's what's lacking right now. Like, we can't be too proud to say, I need help. I don't know. I don't have kids on the spectrum, but I do raise a 14-year-old, and there are days I have no idea what to say to him. I don't. There are days I cry because I don't know. And I get nervous and I get scared because I don't know the answer. But I know if I admit that, that's the first step in healing and getting the services that I need. And I can reach out without fear of, oh, I'm the big tough dude, so I don't really need help. I can figure it out. No, sometimes you can't. Right?
So one of the comments that I think are fairly common, that, we hear from dads, or when, some of this conversation comes, is that, I've got my little boy, but now he can't go fishing with me. Now he can't play baseball with me. Dawn, could you share with Eli the Holland story, the arrival, and then listen to this story and think about, like what I said, these dads, that's some of the comments that I've heard, he's never going to be able to do this. But this was really a good story, and then see what would be a dad's perspective, or what could we tell a dad?
So the Holland, as in Welcome to Holland,
Yes.
that story.
Yes, it's a good one.
I'm trying to, because I can't remember it. Wait,
The family prepares for a trip to Italy. And so they've read all the guidebooks and they know the places they want to visit. But on the way to Italy, they end up in Holland. Barnes & Noble, at the Thomas the Tank train, they may not interact well with other at the Thomas the Tank table. And then because the autism spectrum is so different, Smallland, we might be able to talk the same language as those from Sweden, or you got to put the SH in. You can somewhat speak the same language, but yet the customs are still different and everything. And that essay always resonated with me, just because I think the mother who wrote the Holland piece was a Down syndrome mom. So, but with the autism community, we've got behaviors, and at the very severe end of it, I can't imagine some of the trauma and exhaustion that must come from watching a kid 24/7
Absolutely.
who's violent and who's not sleeping.
Doesn't know danger. Yeah.
Who's
Maybe not toilet trained.
not toilet trained, who's eating everything they can put in their mouth. You know, you talk about self-care to those families, and
It's a different picture.
it's a different picture, and the words sort of fall flat.
Sure.
I don't know if you gave me that article, but it was published, that Holland story. It was published somewhere. And I don't know if you gave that to me years ago. Conrad was little, but man, did that resonate with me, because I didn't know what it was about. You just said, read this, or maybe where I worked, they read it. And I thought, okay, I'll read it. And oh, it choked me up. I need to find that again, because that was really, and you probably would like to have it, Eli, because it was well, because I had no idea where that was going when I read that. And it was very eye-opening. And I thought, yeah, it's exactly right. This explains it very well.
So I think, that sometimes the dads, they're on the bus to the Super Bowl. I'm having a son, right? And where do we end up on the frozen pond out back where the ice cracks, so our Schmalland,
right?
So how can we communicate? How can we share with, dads that maybe are on that journey?
Maybe just starting out, you mean, a little bit? Because I feel like
even starting out, but some of them never get past
that's true.
that.
They never did get past it. You're right. That's true.
That's a great question. That's a really tough question. I think, honestly, they see it. They're not oblivious to it, right? Again, it comes down to ego. What would I rather be doing than doing that?
Right.
Mom can do that, right? If we're talking about tradition, what do they say? Now, I don't abide by this at all, but what do they say? Mom takes care of the home, right? So mom can deal with the kids. I'm going to go out and do X, Y, and Z, right?
I mow the lawn, so mom can do the 24/7.
24/7, right? And that doesn't make it right? But I've always, and I've had this conversation, kind of an argument with a friend of mine, because he likes to push me, and I like that, because I'll tell him, just give it to me straight so I can give it back to you. We talk about this very thing, about this, mom takes care of the home, I do the work, I'm the breadwinner, and whatever issues with the kid, mom can deal with it. Well, why does it, and I always say, well, why does it have to be that way? We're a team, right? So why can't it be even? Why can't we split the duties at home? Why can't you take the kid to the appointment? Right. Why can't you sit with the kid? And Dawn, you talked about, the self-care falling flat. It is flat because of that absence, or that lack of honesty of what you're seeing. You see the escalation. You choose not to interact and do anything. That's not good.
That's right.
When you see it, right? It's one thing when you're not there, you're deployed for a year and things are going on and you can't get back to help. But when you're there every day and you go to work and you come home and you see it, you know it's not right. Yeah. And that's where it gets to that point where the families start to really disengage with one another. Because one is saying, they don't have to say it with their voice, but you see it. So they're saying it out loud. I need help. Can you help me? Right? And on the other side, it's like, well, I got a tea time at like 5:30, so I'm going to sit for 20 minutes and then I'm going to go. I don't know what the long-term fix of that is. All I will say is I don't give anybody an out when you're present and you see it and you choose not to do or say anything in that moment. That's not productive. That's not the right thing to do. And you know that. Deep inside your gut, you know that. The problem is, as I said earlier, you're not honest with yourself.
Right.
So you You pretend that, oh, it'll stop in 20 minutes, right? But you're not asking, what do you need right now?
Can we shave some time off this if I help?
Or can I tap you out?
Yeah.
I got you. Let me tap you out right now. Go take a drive. Get out of the house, get some fresh air, relax. I got this for the next 4 or 5 hours. You go. And then when you come back, let's sit down and figure out, okay, what's the best course of action for our kid, right? This is about his future now. So we got to be fully invested. We've had our 15 minutes. It's about raising our child now. So what are we going to do to make sure that he has or she has the best services moving forward? But they see it.
Yeah.
And that's what I see sometimes, where when I have these hard conversations and I get talked to the way I get talked to, it's because I'll say, well, how come dad hasn't said anything? Mm-hmm. He's here, dad, and dad gets mad, right? Mm-hmm. And you know why he gets mad? Because I just called him on his behavior and his lack of help. Because eventually this isn't sustainable.
Especially a lot of our moms are working on top of this
Absolutely.
too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And that seems to get forgotten because maybe they have to adjust their job or their income so they're not making as much.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I'll say this too, to the dads that are listening to this podcast. There are some dads who get it right. Mm-hmm. We're not talking at you, we're talking to you. So there are a lot of dads who get it right, but there's some dads who listen to this podcast that know, if they're being honest with themselves, that know they've dropped the ball. And there's nothing wrong with saying it now. Hey, I dropped the ball. Moving forward, let's get the services needed. When you need to be tapped out, I'll tap you out. Or how about this? Maybe I'll start the day, right? So you don't have to get up and make the lunch and get the clothes out, and let me get him ready today, right? Let me take him to school today. Let me talk to him today. Right. So again, a lot of it's communication, because that's where the self-care starts, when that happens. Right. And I think at some point things will start to change in the home when that happens. But the dads that are not active or helping, they see what's happening. Yeah. Like that's my honest answer is, and I said this to families, like, you see what's happening. You know how dangerous it is for you to just sit there and be silent? You know how bad that looks? Definitely. When you go out and play golf or you go out with but you know how that looks, right? That's where the male ego, right? We all have an ego. I have an ego too, but I definitely know when to check it. And in advocating, I just think it's so important that we highlight these things, because if they're ever going to get corrected, I don't want to say fix, right? Because I don't feel like things are seriously broken that cannot be repaired. But when we get to a point where we see it, we have to be willing to say, if I'm invested in my child, I got to call them out. I got to say, I need help. You can't go play golf today, right? And I know it's easier said than done. I know it is, but it needs to be said. Because as that child gets older and there's no real male presence in his or her life, they remember that.
Mm-hmm. Affects them.
And they'll say, you were sitting on the couch when I escalated, like when I was 8, and you never talked to me, but mom did. They'll say that. I've had kids who say that. Mm-hmm. Dad was right there. Mom did it. Dad just sat there. You know, and that's hard to take as a parent or as a dad, to know that you're right there and to know that kid is processing that you're not helping.
Right.
You know, so.
Right. Gosh, I hope dads are listening. Some dads. Not my husband. Sorry, that sounded wrong. He's actually really great. But I mean, he is really a great father. Yeah. But I think early on, when I was protecting him so much, I didn't really know what was going on with him, with my son. I remember getting paperwork on another student that I had, and I highlighted all the things that our son was doing, because I knew my husband probably wouldn't read the whole article. So I only highlighted the important. And I said, you need to read this. I think this is our son. But I remember being so nervous and because we were all kind of bothered, like, what's happening? What's going on? And he had an elementary, other health impaired. Yeah. So that was the diagnosis at school. So I remember, and I handed it to him, then I went to bed. Escape avoidance might be what they call that. So
It's a self-help strategy.
right. Yeah.
Temporary.
Yeah. Although some husbands continue to do the escape avoidance. But so the next day I said, well, did you read it? And what do you think? And he just kind of looked at me and he's like, that's Conrad. I said, I know. But I felt so relieved.
Right.
My whole body, talking about your body and the toll it can take on us mothers, handling so much for our kids, and the husbands are either doing it right, like you said, or they're half present, or they're not fully present at all, or the marriage has dissolved, or whatever. Then it's even more on you. But I just remember my body feeling so good. And I said, okay, well, then I'm going to go forward and I'm going to do what we need to do. And I'm going to call, okay, yeah, do it. But
your body knows. Your body knows.
Yeah.
And it will shut down.
Right. And that was a long time ago. But anyway, go ahead, Elizabeth.
Hey, you said that, ask you anything, let's get this real, right? Okay, so you're speaking on behalf of yourself, not all men. Sometimes, and I almost feel like it's more of a cop-out, but sometimes, the father or the male will say, well, I try to help, but you're telling me I'm doing it wrong.
Oh, yeah.
And in my, experience, it maybe those words come out, but it roots from you haven't listened to anything I said. You're doing it your own way. I've attended 50 hours of conferences. I work with these professionals. I've studied. This is what I do all day long. And you want to help, but you come in and you help your own way. And it doesn't work. We end up meltdown. We end up developing a habit that's now I've got to fix that, because now you've taken everything, every structure I've built. And it wasn't that I don't want your help or you're doing it wrong, but you're not listening. You think that you can walk in and fix this all of a sudden and you can do it your way and you want to try it your way. But now you're not going to help anymore because maybe you were corrected once, or you said, please don't do that. Example, we had no offense, honey. We had a fry pan, had cooked some meat, and so one of my sons came up and he said, hey, go ahead and, just be casual in the kitchen, reach in this fry pan that was cool and pull this piece of meat out and eat it. And I'm like, no, because he's not going to know next time that it's not hot and it's not cooking at that moment. And he was hurt and offended that I just, don't do that. Right. And he retreated and pulled back, and it affected him differently than it affected me. So thoughts on that?
You're right. It is a cop-out. It goes back to what I said earlier, right? Sometimes you have the need to be right than be free. So I'm going to do it my way because it's the right way. I'm going to step in and I'm going to figure it out. I'll do it. So when I do it, I'll get the praise. So it'll prove to you that my way worked. So let's do it my way, as opposed to listening to your experience. And it goes back to being honest. You were with communication. Now, as the husband, I have to be honest and say, got it. You've been there. I'm learning now, right? So I can't jump in and say, I got it, or I'll fix it. You've been there longer, because, and I'm not using your husband as an example, but I'm saying you've been on the sideline. So you've been like looking in the window, but you haven't been in the game. So now you're in, and you think that you're in now. You're the quarterback. No, right? You're the backup, right? So you have to listen to what I'm saying, because when I'm not here, I need you to follow these rules verbatim. And when you go outside of the rules, this happens, right? When I'm not there. And that's dangerous. That's bad. We can't have that. So I think you're exactly right. I think it just comes down to listening and being present. Yes, your feelings are going to be hurt because for a long time, you didn't want to help.
Yeah.
Right.
And I've had to almost call you to the carpet to help. And now that you're in, all I'm asking you to do as you start out here, this is where I started. So you got to start where I started. As I started out here at the bottom, you got to grow like I did. So I'm here now. So I'm telling you, this step that you're doing, that's not going to work. Do it this way. Watch what happens. Now do this the next day. Do this and do this. And then when you get there, now we can really communicate and have an idea of what we want to do. But until then, I can't have you coming in and being the starting quarterback and saying, well, you can just grab that. It's okay. No, because if something happens, right, who's going to get the blame?
Oh, yeah. Yep. Almost giving
We know. So I think you make a great point. That was a great analogy. But it comes down to you got the experience because you've been there long.
And we've made the mistakes. Yeah. I've made the mistakes. Oh, I'm going to teach Nathan how to fold kitchen towels, right? I'm going to teach him how to put them in the drawer. So from that point forward, every wet, soggy, gross dish towel got folded and put in the drawer. You know, I've learned we have to do this thing. You know, we don't do certain things. And that's the thing. You know, maybe we're at this level because we have made those mistakes. And if we can avoid making them again and having to undo things.
Right.
Well, you know about the lights. I thought I was so smart. You know, Nathan would be kind of waiting around for us to go. And I'm like, well, I'm going to give him something to do. I'm going to let him turn all the lights off before we leave. Well, who became the keeper of the lights? And at 22, he is still the keeper of the lights. And if he wants them on, he wants them on. And if he wants them off, he turns them off. And it's on his schedule. And we're finally getting to that because it's all on or all off. Okay. It's not, hey, we're watching a movie, so we're going to turn this light over the TV off so we can see it better. And so, you know, and that's taken, 15 plus years to undo. Wow. And I don't want to have those mistakes. So I've made those mistakes.
Right. That's why I say you started, you built it, and now you're here. You can't have someone coming in, whether husband, friend, another advocate, and say, we're going to do it this way. No, I know what happens when it goes that way. Just trust me. You got to trust me because I've been here longer. Right. So I think you ultimately get there. And as long as the dads are willing to listen in that way, then it'll eventually work out. But if you're going to play like you're the man, or you're in charge, or your way is the best way, it normally doesn't work out that way. And then what ultimately happens is you start to really butt heads. Oh, not just that. Now it bleeds into other things in life. Right? Oh, you think I can't do that now? Right? It's like, no, I didn't call you out because of that. I'm just telling you, now that you're present, or you want to be present now, I'm telling you, I've done what you've done. It doesn't work. You have to do it this way. I've worked hard to get it this way, and it's working this way. All I'm asking you to do is do it this way. It's really simple, right? It's really simple. I think sometimes we make things really hard. We use big words like, to explain communication, right? And it's really an easy thing to address. We just have to be honest with it. And it seems like you were. As a male, I know speaking from my perspective, I can't speak for every male. We do get offended. Our ego does take a hit, right? I know I was raised to be tough. I was raised not to cry. Don't cry. Right. Not from my mom, but from my dad. Don't cry, or I'll give you something to cry about, right? So I couldn't really display how I felt when I was feeling something. So it does hit us differently. But if we're honest, we understand. I know why she said that. I get it. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. She's right. I need to pivot and do it her way. And then that way we'll get closer, and I'll get closer to the kids. And then ultimately we'll be this big family, and then we can get services together where I can show up at the meeting and sit there and understand what's happening.
Yeah, because ultimately it makes everything easier.
It does. It does.
You know, if they, yes.
Yeah, but the team.
It does.
Yeah.
It's a team.
Right.
It really
right.
is.
Well, before we wrap it up, any other last tips you think for men and their self-care or dads, or you kind of already touched on like checking out a little bit from social media or just exercise, or the dads that you've worked with or seen? Does anything stand out?
My advice to the dads is just have the courage to fail. Have the courage to get it wrong. You got to get it wrong to get it right.
Mm-hmm.
So try your best to remove your ego in the situation, and remember who it's for. Ultimately, it's for your child. Right. You're creating a future for your kid.
Right.
So I would offer that because I do think that's the most important thing. And communicate. It's simple, right? Your pride will not be hurt if you walk up to your spouse and say, honey, you're right. I need help. I need to understand. I was scared. I was afraid. I didn't want to go out in public with our child. I didn't want to be seen in public with our child. I'm sorry. Let's make it right now. I'm willing to make it right. I'm willing to sit in it with you. Mm-hmm. Because you can't sit in it alone. It's just not sustainable. So if they do that, I think it starts there. I think you can build with that. To the men that are listening that are struggling with it, you got to have that honest conversation with yourself. What am I doing here? It can't be about golf. It can't be about my selfish gains. It's got to be about the family, the good of the family. That's the purpose now, right? If I'm having children, I got to be there to protect them and to make sure they're getting the services that they need, right? That's important. So I would encourage men to think about that. And that's what I would leave them with today.
Oh, perfect. Love it. Well, we appreciate you being here. Eli Winfrey is our guest host. And, where can they follow you for all these motivational little, I always say speeches. I don't know why I can't get the term right.
Well,
motivational message.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Message.
Yes.
Message.
You can find me on social media. I'm on Instagram at Eli0626. I am on Facebook at Elijah Winfrey. I think Elijah Winfrey.
Yes, it is. Yes, Elijah Winfrey. Yes.
I am on X as well, and you can find my nonprofit on Facebook at Team Winfrey. So hit me up. Let me know what you think, and if I can help anybody, I am definitely open to doing that. All right. My goal has always been pretty simple. I want to make things better for someone or something, and I want to leave the world in a better place. So that's what I'm about.
Love it.
Thank
you.
you.
Glad you're here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you guys can find us. This is usually Tara's job, so that's why I'm struggling a little bit here, but you can find us or email us at moms@navigatingadultautism.com. Go to our website at navigatingadultautism.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And what do you like? What do you?
Well, I'm a little jealous right now because I'm looking at these shirts and I really want a shirt.
Okay,
so
we'll
very
get you a
badly.
shirt. We're getting ready to order some more, so we will get you a shirt. So yes, yeah. Hopefully we can get stuff on our website eventually, maybe. So yes. Okay. Well, thank you for listening, everybody. We appreciate it. Till next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.